for quite a few years. I didn't get along very well with other peers of mine at an early age. They tended to be a little bit afraid of me, like that. Naturally, the bullying and being picked on, and I had that. I'd come home with broken eyeglasses, and then my dad would, punish me for that, and my mom would punish me for that. So I got punished each way, and there was no diagnosis or special help. I was seen as someone that was a daydreamer, and also hyperactive. I had a very fine-tuned and high energy, and I still do. In fact, today I'm still on medications, and they help me a lot. I'm able to sleep at night. Most of the lifetime that I lived without medications, I never slept. I'm not sure exactly what it is about the mechanism of sleep, of how people can live without sleeping, but I did that. I had very little sleep. That would affect the psyche on its own. But how can you separate, in my opinion, the symptoms of schizophrenia and the symptoms of autism? I don't think they can be really removed from one another. Also, my tendency to do art and always be occupied doing art and thinking about imagery and thinking about my own universe that I've created with my art. You can't separate them all. I think to ameliorate one would be to ruin the other ones. I got into some other little accidents that happened to me, and they're kind of fun to talk about. One year, about 1974, I had traveled around Florida. I was living in Fort Lauderdale at the time. I wanted to seek out universities and colleges. And I eventually picked Kent State University, but prior to that, I was looking at University of South Florida in Tampa, or U of F in Gainesville. Actually gone there and visited. Meanwhile, my mother had concerns and invited some Baptist ministers to have a look at my paintings. Well, they didn't quite understand that I had already at that point a very mature group of paintings of some things that you might see up here. And so here's, I always had also a sense of humor in my art. My art wasn't that awful, but they came up one day after I returned from my trip around. I actually had to hitchhike around Florida, don't do that. And they invited me to go into their car. Actually, they took me downstairs and put me in a big black car and took me, without being able to see, out the window. They held my head down. And then they took me to a very cold room in the back of a church. And it was, I could feel the floor, I could feel the smell. It's like a linoleum floor. And they flicked the lights on, almost blinded me, and then started doing their divine unction. It's the method of exorcism. I went through an exorcism. I had a big guy, linebacker's foot on my chest. That was a lot of fun. I did not understand what they were trying to do, because
They didn't understand either.
I had. You can't separate your thoughts. What are your thoughts? What's auditory, and what are your thoughts? You can't really separate that. I was not a bad guy. I didn't do anything to deserve that, nor was I hurting myself or anything like that. So I just went immediately to another, at that point I was not on any medication, and I went to the clinic and got medication, and I was much better off for it. And I was, I think many of the kids, they have that, self-centeredness. They can come out of it at some point. It might take years. I think applied behavioral analysis They have like board certified applied behavior analysis. This is the common way of treating autism. I think it's a slow process. I have my opinions about it. Some people, they do not advocate medication at all. I can understand that from an idealistic point of view, but I think that you shouldn't be that afraid. I think maybe a child should be a certain age before they're given something. I really don't know how to evaluate that. I'm not a scientist or a doctor. But I can assure you that someone with ADHD would be given an amphetamine, and somehow their body speeds up to the level of their mind, and they seem to calm down, and now they can act normal. They can absorb information normally on the job or in the classroom. Bad parents, you've heard of it, they take those amphetamines and take them themselves. That's the drug abuse. They're actually having a sensation of a euphoria from taking it. Whereas the person that is meant to have that amphetamine, it clears their mind and they're able to see properly. And so it is with, I think that it's a fascinating subject. Throughout my life, job interviews face-on usually didn't work for me. I was lucky to have, being prolific, I had someone to write me a referral that's willing to speak on my behalf. Otherwise, I would have had jobs in the job history. In 1997, I started my S Corp, so I'm still running that corporation. I'm a graphics consultant and illustrator, and I'm able to work, still working. In 1990, I started a sole proprietorship, and that was to do with manufacturing audio CDs for music people. And I used to be called in London, in Cleveland, Ohio, I was called the anthropologist, they'd call me, or Steve Artist. They'd go to him, he'll do anything. I would do anything from church music to metal bands and alternative bands. And so they called me anthropologist. They didn't care what the style was. Just, I'll do whatever you want. And a lot of people were not doing that. They would be specializing in the style. And I was able to do everything. And so I've had a good life. I have no regrets. I'm going to continue doing what my new mission is at the age of 60. I think it's time for me to give back to society and to speak on behalf of autistic individuals and to apply to these conferences and do presentations similar to this one. And I think there's a future for myself doing this, as well as art. And I was in a book, fascinating book that took 3 years developing. The author is Debra Hosseini. There's contact information back there at the back of the sanctuary. The book that I'm in is Artism, The Art of Autism. It's published by Autism Today. Karen Simmons, the founder, published this book. And it had its opening at a conference in Washington State, in Vancouver, Washington, June 6th through 9th. And this book is fascinating. There's 54 artists. You get a little bit of a slice of life from each of those unique individuals. And they range all kinds of ways on the spectrum. And some are, they're not even speaking, but they're able to do visual representation or something internal, and they're able to express themselves. And I think that's awesome. And also, they recently just had a show in New York City now. It's in an open studio situation, so that the people that are in that book are actually showing there. And there'll be more planning for more things with the artists in that book.